Hallo, hallo. Ja, willkommen zurück. Ich hoffe, ihr hattet eine schöne Kaffeepause und Sie konnten sich ein bisschen stärken. Es geht weiter mit einem Impulsgespräch zur intersektionalen politischen Bildung in der Praxis. Ich freue mich sehr, hier zu sein und dieses Gespräch moderieren zu können. Wir haben 5 wunderbare Referentinnen, die langjährige Erfahrung und weitreichende Expertise in der praktischen intersektionalen politischen Bildungsarbeit haben und aus vielfältigen Bereichen kommen. Und ja, ich freue mich auf ein spannendes Gespräch. Vielleicht ganz kurz zum Ablauf. Wir werden ein etwa halbstündiges Gespräch haben, das ich mit ein paar Fragen begleiten werde, und dann gehen wir in eine Öffnung fürs Publikum und dann können Sie Ihre Fragen stellen. Ich stelle ganz kurz die Referentin vor und werde mich an Peggys Beispiel halten.
Oh, yeah. So briefly, sorry, the microphone was off. So we are going to have a 30-minute discussion with the experts sitting at the front on the topic intersectionality base, political education, and after the participants will have the opportunity to come to the front and get involved in the discussion. So on the left side, we have the first expert, names of Oktober, who is the Executive Director of Migrations Rat Berlin e.V. She's the co-founder and project leader of Initiative International Pedagogy, IPAD. Ed Grave is an anti-discrimination trainer in the project IPAD. And in addition to that, he is an occasional performer, part-time graphic designer, inspiring state politician for Die Urbane. And then Yolana Kolberg, she's project manager of the NGO SAC Splitter, but at the same time project coordinator of Teen Empowerment Sectional of Migration Council of Berlin. And then you have Amethyste Benoit. She's active by the Initiative for Black, German, and by their committee organization Erbschaft Business. And then you have also Raya Leon Hamann, who is a PhD student in culture and social anthropology at the University of Halle-Wittenberg, and as well as member of the Anton Wilhelm Armo Business Halle. So we'll start with a question addressing to Juliana. You have been working for almost 4 years by Sword Pleater, transdisciplinary oriented, and you're addressing various concepts and theories and knowledge resources, and of course you base your work on intersectionality. And I wanted to ask you if you can share more about your work with us. Yes, I've already noticed that you say that you ask a long, very complex question, and you please with us to be as brief as possible. We're trying to base our work on our own personal identity, so we focus on our own community and see what representation means, and we try to go beyond it. And we try to use an intersectionality base in our work. It means to recenter our perspective as an outgoing point, to minimize discrimination. This is where we start. And from there, we keep on our work, continue our work and address various other issues, and try to reflect on new methods that are already existing and to redefine them, and to talk at the same time about one dimension form of discrimination and use it in our work. Can you say more about the themes that you are focusing on in your work? How do you work on those themes? We select our teams based on work in the community. So we are an NGO that is community-oriented, and we communicate, we talk with members of community, we create space for discussion, for exchange, to talk about sensible question that we develop together, and try to come up together with options so that those options later on can be used in our work. Thank you very much for this brief overview on your work. So I will continue with Ed Tuba from iPad. You have been existing for many years in a time when intersectionality as concept was not well spread as nowadays. And we're one of the few organizations who started addressing the topic of intersectionality for a very long time. So what was your motivation for the creation of the initiative you put in place? Hello, so I seem to have some issue with the microphone. So you had a test, brief test that can use. So the microphone was not on. So it could be that she tried to play with the microphone, that's why it didn't function, but now it's fine. So she is suffering from ADSS. It means that when usually she speak and she lose and she lose her focus. You should not be surprised. The question was when were they created as an NGO, and some years ago as a Cree-based NGO, working in schools. They were put in place. They came together. At the region, it was focus on gays and lesbians from Turkey, and now it most spread its focus on other countries and regions. And back in those days, it was pretty a surprise from society to see Turkish people with the focus on gay and lesbian from Turkey, and they work in sensitive quarters in schools, and they were contacted by schools that had a focus on challenging groups, communities, and they try to talk with, and they receive offers, demands such as trying to offer workshop training for students of 3 hours to make them less homophobic. And so what they did is that they went to school and they described how sexual identity looks like it's being created in the society. And of course, the first reaction of the students was shocked students about this new knowledge. And so what they did later on, they put the children together and they talked about the homophobism, and we asked the students questions, or as well teachers, on topics such as who of them are working on topic discrimination, but also mobbing to queer teams. And from the 16 questions that I asked, nobody replied positively to it, and nobody was addressing those forms of discrimination. And in biology, as a field, the topic reproduction was addressed briefly, but later on, they discovered there was a need to address the topic, and she herself is as an educator, but she's been working the field for 20 years. She might look a little bit younger than her age, but that's the queer in her. But as an educational expert, the first thing you learn is that you are protection space for others. When others see things through you, you have to use it as a base for your work with the others. And that's what they try to question in their work in the pedagogical field, and that's how they that work lead them to the topic of intersectionality, and it's been 11 years that they've been working. What they're doing currently, her colleague will share with us. So hello, the sharing of the room is a bit difficult. I'm trying, though, sitting on the left side to share my view with them, but I hope you all can see me. Ja, wir können ja, es wurde ja schon Zusammenfassung von, it just had a summary of what was done in our NGO for the last 11 years. And from schoolrooms, we have not left the schoolroom, moved to other spaces, and on the topic of intersectionality. And 750 workshops is what we have implemented the last 7 years, and of course that was a big ambition, big goal that was set because we wanted to influence the structures in place. We wanted to achieve things that will have a long-term effect on the society, and of course we are aware of the fact that in 3 hours you cannot change someone to a discrimination critical individual. So even after that, people usually have positions, values that can difficultly be changed within a short period of time, specifically in the authoritarian system, like it's the case in schools, is where a lot of changes, where a lot of point has to be changed to achieve a small change at a key level, beginning with schools, books, where big questions like who are the stakeholders who are being involved in the process of decisions taking, and who are represented. Question like who are represented in the conference of teachers. All this question led us to the idea of conceptualizing methods and ways that will help us to get involved in those structures at those levels. And later on, we receive ideas, proposals that, oh, can you come to us? We have just created a working group called Diversity, but we don't know what we have to do. We have read books, but we don't know what to do. Can you still come again? Can you help us? Can you guide us in our process? We went to some school some few times, and we were able to monitor some few small projects, and this is what exactly we saw that we are able to achieve our goal through, and we were able to promote positive changes. And what are we doing today? This is what we're doing basically, but we grew up and we moved on from the structural level schools to the educational administration. We don't know how many people we're walking touring. Geography is not my strength, not Saxony, but in touring, you know. But to get to here, you have to go to Leipzig. So. But I mean, you all have a ministry for education. In our case, it's the Senate for Education, and there's structural decisions are being taken, and this is why we put in place, develop projects that are aimed to reach stakeholders at the administration level, and we were able to achieve to reach out to some people, but some not. But this is what we've been dealing with these days, and we hope to keep on doing this work for the next 10 years. Going back to the beginning of your NGO or your work, how did it feel? How was the reaction to your work as intersectional pedagogy? back in those days, you used to receive a lot of demand where the topic of intersectionality was not really well spread in Germany. You have seen how our team is built up. So we have people with various forms of discrimination. So in our NGO, you can only work if you yourself is are related to 2 to 3 types of discrimination, and you're currently working in the pedagogical field or in the social field. And this is what lead to some few resistance to, that some schools show towards us at the beginning of our work, where we had to break down the topic of intersectionality or pedagogy, and through some method that we started on using to explain what made dimensional discrimination, various forms of dimension means and how it can be used, and later on those offers were used. We hang our flyers at some schools, and later on we had a reply demands of various schools who demand to receive workshop offered by us, of course, since the workshop were free. Obviously, the demand increased with the time. Of course, social institution welcome, but we never really wanted to create offers that can only be received or consider when people have the funds, need the fund for it. So, Raya, right, you're working by Dekolonialität, ESD, and usually intersectionality and diversity are being considered 2 different things, as we have learned today, or we have heard today. We have to consider diversity and decoloniality have to be separated. And I would like to hear from you in Dekolonialisierung or Anton. Amo, how is the correlation between those 2 words as being seen, and how do you implement it in your work? Yeah, sure. It's a central dimension of what makes it difficult to talk about it, because intersectionality and decoloniality or decolonization are directly connected first. What does it mean? He's, for instance, in the Hantam Amon Business and in Halle, and he's working in strong relationship with other stakeholders, and the aim to decolonize European-centric orientated knowledge means that you have to question the origin of those knowledges, and you have to have a critical approach towards scientific concepts, theories, and constructs. And also means that we need to question patriarchal-based structures and classical-based structures and the various type of structures which are form of oppression, to change them in the critical manner. So it means decolonization for us means that, but hopefully for a lot of other groups, that we need to bring those changes, that those concepts, to question the origin of the concepts that are being used nowadays. And we need to necessarily work based on categories. But when you start thinking intersectionally, multidimensional level to promote multidimensional transformation, then you have to only see or acknowledge the fact that the topic colonialism continuity has to be questioned, need to be critically analyzed, and after that change. So in our cooperation with other stakeholders as our business, Anton Wilhelm Amo Halle, and the focus here is to create a remembrance tradition of Anton Wilhelm Amos, who was the first black student in a German university, who lived in the 19th century, and we tried to create a figure at the university, and so we had a working group, Wilhelm Amos post-colonial, and later on the plastic was later used for tours organized in the city, and we contacted the university to work with them to create a remembrance place and to contextualize that plastic creation that was put in place. And when I'm thinking back about it, the plastic was just part of it, that work was created in the time of where Germany was separated and where people were positioned only two way, either white woman or men, and exotism play a concept or approach or view on those people were strongly promoted back in those days when the plastic monument were put in place. But today we have a different opinion and a different approach, because Wilhelm Amos was a black person to us. So to us as a group, it was clear that we have to go behind the idea of colonialism, but decolonialism has to be addressed, but also the dominant remembrance culture has to be reflected, as where we see more masculine figures that are being portrayed and less feminine figures, which lead us to the idea of marginalization based on gender that is as well promoted in the remembrance culture with a focus on the black history in Germany and beyond. So we'd like to complete or add something to what I said now. Maybe you could also say something about how you do it practically in your work, this connection. You already explained what your approach is all about, but in the practice, how do you do it when you do your work, your education? What do you do? In decolonization, we have various roles. We try to share the vision, the idea behind the concept of decolonization through city tours. We show various stations in the city with a connection with colonial history of the city, like the supermarket Edeka, and where those name comes and what it used to be, and how black people were seen back in those days. And at the same time, we also try to propose projects and topic as part of seminars at the universities that have been done, lectures. Those are the practical activities we try to promote the topic of decolonization. Thank you. Yeah, so come back to the challenges. As you might already know, when you do this kind of job, you have to face a lot of challenges. And I'm going to continue with you, Yuli. As you already mentioned, you work strongly in strong cooperation with the community. You're coming from various communities yourselves, where you yourself are finding your identity. Why is it so important for your practical intersectional work? Or is there also some resistance that you experience in your work because of the way you work? I would like to start with the reason why it's important for us to work at a community-based level. So, because it's very difficult, you're sitting on the panel, you ask what intersectional practices mean. I will say my life. I will answer simply my life. Why? Because it's so difficult to pack the word thing, definition of how you as a POC person living in Germany can define the word community-based intersectionality. So because of all those connections on how we live in this world, how we connect with others, with what we are being confronted with. We have some various perspectives that come into place that play a key role. For instance, talking about the pandemic, for instance, we are facing similar challenges, but at the same time, the pandemic is having a different impact on us comparing to other communities. So it shows how important it is to do work that is based on community. At the same time, I also say that's a challenge itself. Why? Because it's very difficult to share that work that is community based without questioning the trust that is being expressed toward us while the space is being given to us to do our work. So we have some limit that are structure based and not the one that we create ourselves in our mind. And of course, we have to address the issue of resources, specifically the financial part. We have to create environment to overcome barriers, various form of barriers. That we have the digital aspect of it, of organizing events, and we have to adjust to all those challenges and deal with those crises. And it does have consequences on the way we work, because usually we barely have time to think about how those world things influence our work, influence us, and maybe try to come out with other methods, other concepts. Why? Because we have security, we have well-being of human beings that are being linked with all those aspects of our work, and those are the challenge that we have to figure out to manage at the same time, to transfer outside of our community, to formulate them in a way that other groups can identify themselves with it. And at the same time, we also have to know when to settle limits. Like at this level, we can't go behind it. We can't go behind this level. And those are the time where, since I went in Berlin, the topic is discussed, like dekoloniality is being used as a password, while it's actually a surviving mechanism. It's not a password. It's a surviving mechanism put in place by BPOC to fit themselves in the society, where people have to come out with project to leave out of it. But at the same time, it can be used as an opportunity to create various other things. So talking about our NGO, I've always been happy doing my job. Why? Because we are not only the community, but we have the support of those community. We are working together. We think about the things that we do together. We work in themes, and we just take decisions together, and we carry on the consequences of our choices together. So it's a firm relationship that is put in place that of giving and receiving, taking and giving, that where we find ourselves into. And we go along with the feeling, and where a lot of interesting ideas come out in the process, and that's exactly what we need to overcome the challenges that we're facing. So to me, that I consider to be surprisingly interesting and innovative and very impressive. You're addressing also very important, talking about intersectional-based education, but intersectional work, this collaborative aspect of the work is extremely important. Yes, by all means, barely possible. I think maybe a lot of people might not know it. Talking about here about our organization, we're only 3 people working on our project, and we're not much. so the three of us are doing the work, but we have a big network behind us, not only from our community, but from friends, from family members, and all those things, people who are involved with us directly and indirectly, with who we are cooperating. And at the end of the day, we are all community-based NGO because all those stakeholders come together and they're interacting together. So without that support, it would have been impossible for us to bring in an intersectional perspective in our work. At Oktober, you work, as you already mentioned, with children and students in schools. Now, I'd like to find out from you, what is your experience with sharing intersectional approach and perspective as a tool in the work with children and students? What is your experience there? It could be that a lot of people consider the concept to be very complicated for the time being made available for you to work, or in your work in schools, in school administrations. What were the challenges that you were facing, you had to face so far? Two different questions that you asked. I would like to start with the school-related question. Well, generally, I would say that not only in our case or by children and students, when we have been working so far with various target group that are working, for instance, in the social training, who have been working as teachers for 20 years. So finally, you already have this idea that you need a different approach when you're dealing with children than when you're dealing with teachers, adults. So you try to come out with various methods, but you might have noticed it, but surprisingly, you will be surprised to find out how many teachers are not interested in reading books. In the worst case, expert book, they're not interested in it. What? Because they do not inform them about what has been happening for the last 20 years, new knowledge, improvement, and that's the problematic that comes out when you come to them with this kind of concept. They usually react with the concept is very difficult to explain, it's very complex. And the only difference in this case is that it's the way the media is portraying those target group, on what people are used to, or in which speed you are sharing your knowledge or implementing your concepts with the target group. So to make sure that you can reach out to them. And the common point with those stakeholders is the fact that I'll say that we must actually not go there with a book definition of what we want to do. Usually people tend to have a goal of reciting a definition that was taken out of a book, but to sound professional, scientific. Of course, it's clear that when you talked about you're targeting a group that itself has been facing discrimination, of course, it may be easier for you to reach out to the group by defining the group or asking the question, true question like, who owns Mac, who has the power in school? Going from that point, now you can now reach out to the group and keep on moving with questions like, how do you feel yourself represented? What type of stereotypes are being reproduced? And why proceeding this way, you cannot reach this moment where you get a new idea, a new knowledge on the situation of the school where you're operating. Some people also find it very tricky and stupid. Of course, this is a new form of knowledge, enlightenment, and what some teachers might have been used to throughout her life and never actually happened to question. And some people, what we do is considered to be too complex, too complicated. And on the other side, we have people who consider our work as something very empowering, and or we have people who consider it to be too funny, not too serious, and people tend to pretend like people like myself do not exist, so you do not have access to certain milieus. So obviously, some point you reach a point where you feel like young people might not be addressed or considered or dealing with this, facing this kind of challenges, but that's not the case. But the more you address a topic, the more you discover that you have to question some types of privilege, like who created those privilege, who are maintaining those privileges for who. And at the end of the word of your vocabulary, you still have people who cannot explain what intersectionality means, but who understood what one understand under that word, but cannot define it with their own words. Maybe to the underside, the administration.
The school is just like, like a crystal ball where you can see inside what is taking place in society. So you have difficult people, people who are very committed, people who do not want to work together with us. So we use the moral dimension. We have this mission. We have to be teachers. Teaching at these schools, some of them are also actually officially employed by the government, civil servants, and we have to uphold access to school, to education, because it's a human right. And with your attitude, you are hindering children from having access to these rights. So it has to be highly personalized if it doesn't happen the other way. Of course, we work as well under the banner of solidarity towards children. Of course, I can give you definitions, lay 20 books in front of you. But it's not only the matter of whether you're going to read it or not. It's not only the cognitive level that has to be involved. Maybe I don't want actually to see a situation where you will collapse just because I say to you that you are white. So we work as well on the cognitive level, at the cognitive level, with a lot of empathy, so that people can reflect on their own privilege. But sometimes you just keep quiet. This is the way we work. I give this example when I'm going too near to somebody without wanting it, just because I'm a friendly person, but please not. If I am discriminating against somebody, you have to be aware of it. Whether you have a body or not, and whether you can leave it or not, the thing that has to do with you have to apologize. So you have to implement what we've just discussed, and you have to work in a different way. And we are operating in Berlin schools, and everywhere. You see on the flag of so many institutions, they are working in an intersexual way. And we have giving us this self-definition. They say that we have iPads and we have an interface in terms of intersectional pedagogical approach. But the question is not to have a flag, but to implement what you claim to do. And in this context, this is where we operate. This is why I cannot be so friendly talking about authorities, and I think you will understand me. Exactly. We have kinds of, show you the broad range of situation where we have and underline the tension that is underlying. When we talk about anti-discriminatory project, it's very important to stress it. The work that we are doing, especially, has to do with the danger that you're always exposed, because the existence are endangered. People are asking to make an event, and sometimes they say, okay, we have given some thought to it. No, it's too much for the moment. When we are accompanying processes, you have to see what the schools are actually doing, especially the last 2 weeks. There was some kind of momentum. We say, yes, that's very important. We want to do it in a longer run. This was 2 years, very good. There's kind of a flagship model project, but it does. After that, it's not being carried on. Let's go further. But of course, it has to do an existential issue, because if we lose your job, this is something. But if our work is not being carried on, then it's going to have an impact on the work of the schools, because people who are attending the schools, where are they going to go? And sometimes it works like way. Sometimes it is said, yes, we go into the first best option we can find. Of course, at the end of the day, you can say we have done something, but what does it mean? At the end of the day, these are the white institutions that are benefited from it, and they actually perennize, they are maintained, and after that they can say we have such a nice project. If this is making invisible the people who are actually hired to conduct this kind of projects, because this is a part of the system. We are hired, and what is happening is that it is really dirty politics that is made. Our perspective is made invisible, and all people can say that, okay, we have done so much for diversity, and all the projects, name them, that are just mushrooming, and everybody can do something in this context. But of course, it's good that many projects are doing. But look, you have a project that has been in place for the past 9 years, and after that, our perspective is made invisible. It's not only for the applying to our project, but it's for the whole city of Berlin. It's just words, words, words. It's kind of dirty politics that is taking place, and probably not only in Berlin, but everywhere in Germany. You have here the connection to the first panel to know who is actually affected. I'm coming to my last question, and before we open it up to the audience. Yes, you do a lot, but you have actually a multifaceted kind of alliance. So, what do you have? Which kinds of hurdles do you have? Have you been facing, and in terms of the people working in this project? You have also in different towns, partly is in Thuringen, and there are 6 members of this who are really, really there in the long term. And sometimes there's shortage of capacities. Many are students as well in this alliance, and their work is not being made simple. It's not easy for many of them to take part in discussions, and sometimes there are some kind of motivation which is just shrinking. When we talked about and renaming processes in Jena, or there's a long list of it. I've even written them down, where you can pick up your paper here, and then we are in Jena. That is also an issue as such. and many people do not want to live there for a long time. And the promise to really to maintain the group, we had a plenary where we had many new members that came to the stand, but it was not clear, and it's never clear how long they're going to stay because they study there, and after that you just go away from Vienna because there are really kind of tricky things that are happening, especially as POC when you were tutoring. And this is why it's good that you have this base in Turing that we perform this work, but it's just kind of, you feel sometimes awkward because at the same time you have to take care of your own, as it was the case as we're discussing in the panel. You cannot, expose yourself too long to that because it's maybe become a hazard to your life, to your health. Maybe the challenge is maybe a small addition. We are all working first and foremost as voluntary people, besides our student life, and we claim we want to be working intersectionally, and if you are paid, and at the end of the day, there are two cis men who are there because they have the time and the opportunity. So it's a big challenge to to go even beyond our capacity, the limits of our capacity. I'm the only black person. Same with me. That is a challenge, and we have been addressing this issue before. Yeah, I want to say the same as I was saying before, but it's hard. Before I went to the first meeting, I had some kinds of also hesitation. Is it really so? The only one, and I'm still went there, and I was the only one there, and I still stayed there, and I was happy to have done so. It's a major challenge. It's very important for us to do this work, and also be a POC person as well who is not here in Germany, who is in Portugal with a friend, and would have loved to have a more diverse group with also also in terms of gender, because there's only one man in the alliance. And during my studies also, it was important to do this political work to motivate oneself. And so hurdles when you have people who want to do the work but would lack in motivation, or people who are not necessarily directly have experiencing racism. I don't know how I can say so. Wouldn't feel really the necessity and the urgency. And maybe other POC people who want to do the work because they want to change something as soon as possible. But you do not have any kind of funds that you received, no, not regularly kind of funding. We, as other alliances and other groups, we have a larger network. We have the various groups that work about through AMO. We are just working on an application, but it's something punctual. So we have talked about it. These kind of challenges that we have, that in our group there are not many people who are familiar with applying. So this make it even more difficult to have a compact group in the long run. That would be it from my side. And now you have the possibility to ask questions. There's a microphone that can go around. I think so, at least. Who would like to ask a question? Is there anybody? Thank you. My name is Hannah. I would like to say thank you for you who's doing the work in Turingen. I've studied there in Turingen, and after that I went to Berlin because I really didn't feel like staying any longer with Nazis attacking people and people who are protecting as well refugee people. Have a highest level of respect for your work. But the way you have been talking about it as well. Last year I came about to have to establish a connection between racism and our capitalist system, and so we can see where the highest level of diversity is taking place. It is in some school classes and also some schoolrooms, and in where the works are the less safe. At the end of the day, most of the time there are students, people who working in the field of anti-racism. That is good and that is important. But there's something that's maybe get lost along the way. The most numerous group of racialized people in Germany are working in very unsafe conditions, are in very precarious jobs, and are the most affected group by police violence. You have funded organizations who may find some difficulties in adopting a kind of anti-capitalist position. If it's okay, I would like to gather a few questions. Then we would take 2 more questions. We are collecting the questions. If there's still one. What's being experiences? My name is Christian. And in terms of social work, I'm working with young people in the fields of education external to schools. It's a privilege, actually. When I have a look at CTAs and the reflection on it, not talking about political responsibility about the elected people, because this funding of projects and the culture associated to it is a kind of saving scheme for education, schools, for culture, and for society. Because all these utopias that are relevant to society, to culture, are actually a little bit pushed aside, because you're now here in a very noble hotel with a very particular setting, nice drinks, and how is it possible to exercise criticism? I think that you can do the one, questions and checked the people on their attitudes and the way they work, but at the same time, you have to examine the policies and make sure that structures are strengthened in order to avoid burns notes and the lacking of structures in order not everything just to be able to disappear slowly but surely and wane away. This good job that has been done. Hi, Halipat from the archive. It's a kind of similar kind of field of work. I would like to ask about the realities that are being confronted and have been actually make me angry. What about this idea of being a service during at work? Because I bet you already started as a voluntary work, and then Willem Hamo is also a kind of voluntary organization. How do you do with all the initiatives and organizations that are coming to you and asking for political education, for interventions, and therapy at best at the same time? They want so much from us and from you. I just wanted to leave it open because it's interesting how this can be dealt with. We have been actually simply excluded out of something because our political voluntary intervention was not to be reached. So this is why we had been invited, but actually the invitation was cancelled. So this is what I wanted to ask you. I would like to answer. There were two questions first. The criticism against capitalism and the kind of being constantly asked for interventions and services. I would start with capitalism. One of the most important fields of our work is reproduction of knowledge. Is, of course, is true. In what you said, there are things like this, but at the same time, our communities have a lot of knowledge, and we are just not white and recognized. For us, the issue that it has taken is which perspectives are actually picked up to when we deal with criticism against capitalism. Is it intersectional? Because intersectionally doesn't work in the way that you can just jump on it, meaning that you have very different angles to exercise these criticisms. Of course, there are lots of precarious situations we're involved in. Therefore, there's a lot of marginalization. But when we think about the way we are not the kind of people who create the knowledge in a particular space. The issue is we are not recognized within this space because we are not presenting the way they want to do, or because we have white supremacy and racism, and this is something that is not questioned in the situation we are living. So with these perspectives, there's something that is associated to it. There are racified people in Germany, and when I'm thinking about them, I see many people who are living in different conditions. I see knowledge. I think people who are talking to each other, exchanging with each other. I see the discourse that is really above our heads, and we are seeing that we're pulling straight, and independently from the direction you are pulling the straight, we do not come forwards because we have a lot of things that are inside us. And it's not only diaspora, we have another kind of history, we have another kind of people, we refer to many other movements. And personally, as a black person, it's a kind of discourse that that we want to see. I want that Black knowledge will be actually recognized as well on the African on the continent. It's only part of the program, and we say that Germany doesn't see it. But I acknowledge this. I see this beauty. I see this the knowledge. I see these beautiful things that are taking place, and it's really kind of seldom situation. But you want to move beyond that, beyond the thing that is still captured, and so try to follow up the idea. What you say about it, this kind of combination that is important to us. There are some things that are of Greek overlapping, and for many of us, it happens in various ways. We have to keep various forms of balance. Whichever kind of services people want us to provide, whichever expectations are putting towards this, I don't know myself. I come out of it and I don't know any answer to it. I just can see, yes, I can just see, yes, it's quite nice, but what is required for us? And having a look at our biographies and our histories, so if I get money for it, I sell out my life. And what I've experienced, something personal, something that is part of my intimacy. And I have to draw a line and to say, yes, it's good to be able to live from it in this world, but it's not the context in which I want to work. I wanted to make it understandable and what is making the input and why we are the people who are making this input. I would like to add something on it about the issue raised by Anna. I will agree to that. When you want to criticize racism to transform structures, because they are oppressing scriptures, and we're talking about capitalism, because you cannot understand racism without having a deep understanding of capitalism. And I think that there is something like a discourse, a narrative about new social movements. And I think that in this kind of movement, there may be something missing in terms of a deep, in-depth analysis of capitalism, because many people experience this precarious situation on a daily basis. The issue is to see whether it's been apprehended as a criticism of capitalism, and if these concepts are examined as an isolated item, then we don't see the dynamic of marginalization that is underlying it. And we need a holistic kind of approach. Of course, that is a challenge. And the last point I would like to make, what about ourselves as group? This is a good, shabby topic because we're academic in our approach, and because we want to convey our knowledge. And it's performance classism. And it's difficult, very hard to try to avoid it. It's, to make this word of translation, to translate it to other, into other ways, with other ways, what is supposed to be conveyed. That was deep. we have a team that has been funded, 62 team, members of the team. I've been working in the project several years, going to all kinds of bodies and conferences and institutions. And you have 2 additional members of the team that needed a job, and went to all these meetings in bodies and institutions, and who did the applications. And it was an addition to all the voluntary work that's been doing. And these are all the things that we have been doing on a voluntary basis. Maybe it doesn't sound so cool, but we believe in the work that we're doing. We think that it is important to appeal to teachers, as teachers, and to say, make your think in the right way. When they have started to study, you're not kind of the big academic person that you will become subsequently. I don't want to feel guilty anymore. To sit here and to say, yes, we have privileges, just and simply to sit here. Yes, we have access, and we have to show a sense of responsibility in order to able to manage it. And of course, we're working out on classicism to have these kind of hours and to be able to be here. Of course, capitalism is a hegemonic system and a oppressive system, and we work on it, and we're dealing with it in our work. And thank you very much for this question. If you simply express yourself briefly, because we have to close. Yes, I think that this is a big advantage that we have in our work, because we work in schools, because we reach out to people who are there because they have to do. They have to be there. Of course, it's a bit not unnice. And we're also meeting as well teachers that don't have the qualifications to be at universities and to be teaching at universities, but I think that some of us, many of us, could have this qualification as good qualified. Yes, we'd like to actually work where the people are, where they are affected by marginalizations. So we ask, why are your colleagues, your students affected? We ask these questions, and we ask who is benefiting from it. What's kind of advantage you draw from this discrimination? And I think we are quite so successful in this with this approach, because it's just telling you can also be the one who is exploiting others. You can't be a multi-millions dollar, whichever currency way people person. So what we do and what we convey is to actually go along this road. And of course, it's a hierarchy system. Of course, we would like to simply to pull it out. You wanted to be an educationist because your whole heart is beating. It's just, seeking and thirsty for this kind of job, and would like to actually work with the people who have not even completed this education, because they have been facing their reality, and you have to take positions. But of course, we have to also to work with school directors. Unfortunately, I mean, not only unfortunately, some of the school directors love to work with us. it's just the way it works. Sometimes we have to see which kinds of place we can you could be in order to level it up. And of course, I can be so and so as it is needed, and the people who can talk in a very academic way find as well some people in our team that can address the issue in this way. And if you have been able to talk with school directors and we said, oh, this is the awards, and you cannot simply say, okay, we have we're proud of ourselves because there's somebody in a position of power that has been convinced. No, the thing is whether the students are better off before than after rather than before. And this is the way we find something that is rewarding, whether the students are in a better position after.
So that was the closing word. Thank you to all the experts for the discussion. And I have the joy, the honor to announce the dinner that is waiting for us outside. But before we do that, later on we're going to have the evening program with Jennifer Camondinis Garcia Beck, who is going to present the movie Fighters, documentation on civic educational work. And then later on we have a lounge music from DJ Ford Kelly that we can wait to experience. And later on, please do not take your translation tools along. Give them back before going back to home or to your various destination. Thank you. Enjoy your meal.
Ich wollte gerade sagen, also bitte ein Mikrofon benutzen.
Aber natürlich, Herr Messerschmidt.
Genau.
Ja, alles klar. Dann fange ich auch noch mal an mit allem. Hallo zurück. Zurück hier live in Erfurt und auch draußen digital in der Welt. In der Welt ist vielleicht ein bisschen viel, aber im Bundesgebiet, wir haben gerade einen kleinen Zwischenstand, dass wir doch auch eine rege Beteiligung auch digital haben. Das freut uns sehr. Wir hatten, ach so, auch da Maske abmachen. Für die, die mich noch nicht gesehen haben, ist ein bisschen komisch in der Tat. Es war ein langer Nachmittag, sehr schön und vielen Dank, dass Sie auch wieder zurückgekommen sind. Wir kommen zu dem letzten Programmpunkt für heute Abend. Und zwar werden wir jetzt einen kleinen Filmausschnitt sehen, sozusagen ein Sneak Preview von einem Projekt des International Women's Spaces. Der International Women's Space, über diesen Space werden wir jetzt gleich auch ein bisschen länger reden und die InitiatorInnen werden auch sich und ihre Arbeit vorstellen. Der IWS hat ein Projekt initiiert, Erfahrungsgeschichten von Frauensternchen mit Migrationsgeschichte zusammenzutragen, intergenerational über einen Zeitraum von mehr als 30 Jahren darüber zu sprechen, was ihre Erfahrungen und ihre Beteiligungen in diesem Land sind. Und dies auch noch mit einem Schwerpunkt auf die ostdeutsche Erfahrung. Also wie war es in den letzten 30 Jahren und darüber hinaus auch in Ostdeutschland hier zu leben und zu arbeiten. Das ist ein großes Projekt, in dem wir miteinander kooperieren. Wir freuen uns sehr darüber. Wir werden jetzt einen kleinen Ausschnitt sehen, der ist ungefähr 18 Minuten lang. Die gesamten Interviews, die dann einen Raum von ca. 90 Minuten umfassen werden, sind ab Ende des Jahres auch auf der Webseite vom International Women's Space auch abrufbar und der Film selber wird im nächsten Frühjahr fertig werden. Darüber hinaus sind wir in einer Kooperation zu den bildungspolitischen Begleitformaten für dieses Filmprojekt mit Workshops, diese Erinnerungsaustauschräume zu erarbeiten, wo diese sehr lebhafte und sehr lange Erfahrung zusammengetragen wird, auch wieder hochgehoben wird, auch weitergegeben wird. Auch darüber werden wir gleich ein bisschen sprechen, aber erst schauen wir uns diesen 18-minütigen Film an. Bitte schön.
Here is the women space. It's the wing that we occupied only for women. On the corridor, many times we use this space for painting our banners for the protests, and when we go for demos, we paint our banners here. So one sleeping space was here, another one here. Here it was the German lessons room, and also there was our free shop on that corner. And On the wall up there was a transpi and it was written, "You have nothing to lose but your chains." And it stayed from until the end, the transpi there.
I like this. We are here to stay. Exactly. Really. Wow. Refugees movement, Berlin. This is where after everybody was evicted after all the movements. So it's really this is what Sister Mimi and I let me live my life. This is where these were the last moments for Mimi.
I remember
Would have arrested her.
when she went out,
Yeah.
the police came and arrested the friends.
Yes. And this was someone who had been struggling with the system. Imagine Mimi came here when she was 17 years, how much the system had damaged her. Just
Do you
17
think she's
years.
damaged because of all the system?
Yes, it's the system. It gets into your head and makes you crazy.
Tenemos muy feliz cuando estamos nosotros en esta habitación. Todo ni arreglamos todas las cosas en esta habitación. Ahí vive yo, allí, que estamos muy felices. Allí nosotros dormimos, yo y mi familia. Allí vives el Turcay, mi vecino de Turcay, que tenía su niño pequeño, ahí en otro, en sola habitación, el Turcay de Turquía. Vives otras personas que no tenías familia, estaba viejo, tenías un colchón y dormir allí. Y allí vives 10 personas, allí. Está 2 familias ahí. Ahí tenías la cocina, ahí tenías la agua, que ahí tenías una de esto como se limpias, la agua. Estamos muy felices, muy felices, muy felices. Cuando nosotros sabemos que el primo de mi marido él vive allí, estamos todos del Görlitzer Park, todos venimos allí, en esta habitación. Cuando ha venido la policía y me ha dado fuera de la escuela de allí, con Bildungsamt de Kreuzberg, me ha mandado en Gato, en Spandau, que tenías una catástrofe. De ahí de ventana podemos, vemos donde ha hablado la mujer del Bildungsamt. Bájate María que mutamos en otras casas, allí en Kreuzberg. Está muy bien. No, estamos allí. No, estamos allí. Para nosotros está muy bien allí. No María, con los africanos, dale fuego. Dale, poneles lo benzina, lo gas, todos los niños se van a morir. Tú vete abajo con todas familias de romanos, con todos kindas que van a morir. Y tú te vas en cárcel. Está tu culpa que tú no le dejas para darle fuera. Tú. Vosotros estás europeos, vete abajo con toda familia. Ha venido un grupo de policía, no me ha dejado por allí, me ha dejado por allí, por la escalera de refugios, de allí, así, que está una gang. Me ha embarcado en bus y me ha mandado en Spandau, Gato. ¿Sabes cómo está? Como un cárcel. Como un cárcel, está una catástrofe así. Estamos como los prisioneros. No, bájate. No, solo, cada uno. Vite, no estamos criminales, ¿por qué ni tratas así? Que no queremos nada, ¿por qué estamos ni animales? Los animales están tratando más bien. Shh, cállate, langsam, nicht sprechen, shh, langsam, das hier. Vale, estamos todos, tenemos miedo.
The first time I came to Oranienplatz, I think you were the most prominent person I admired. Napoli.
Really?
I don't know if you remember.
Don't joke with me.
I'm not joking with you. I'm saying this for real. Because I came to Oranienplatz, for me, I felt, I understood the importance of this struggle. But I also felt the environment, it was too hostile for a woman to be in this kind of a space. But the fact that you slept there the whole time, you did, like you were the core. I was like, wow, that's a very brave woman. And I was like, wow. But her strength is not my strength. So I decided I'm going to put my strength on something else. And when there was this occupation, I remember, there was a struggle. It was a struggle within the movement as women to get organized. And the biggest struggle was the basics. That the more we decided to have a space for us, the more curious the men got to know why we wanted a space for us.
Can you tell me why do you took space as woman in space?
We needed the space as women because we needed a safe space for ourselves to address issues that touched us as women to begin with. The struggle is completely one. Because if I run you through the reasons why we were all struggling at Oranienplatz, was the residence pflicht, which we all faced. It was the voucher system, which we all faced. It was the isolation. It was a case for everybody. It was lack of work permit. It was lack of the German possibility to study. This is something we were all facing. But besides, the problems that face women, just because they are women, these are the problems we wanted to concentrate on.
Well, there were two occupations. Here in the school, occupation of the roof, and at Oranienplatz, occupation of the tree. 5 days, occupy the tree, and then 9 days, occupation of the roof.
I saw civil disobedience from the Germans themselves in this time. I saw real solidarity from the neighborhood. This was real. And what was so good was that the police was not prepared that for 9 days they would be here trying to evict a movement. They assumed it was going to be a one-day action, kick out all the people, and then it's done. But they had to be here for 9 days. The demonstrations, whenever we called demonstrations, there were 4,000, 5,000 people. This was real. The solidarity was real. And this connected people from all over the world. That's why Women in Exile is fighting. That's why different organizations are fighting.
So which means we are not evicted.
No, we have only shifted. It's just that simple. Yeah.
Germany is giving the weapons, guns, ammunition. They import it to our countries. We're still gonna come here.
How can it be that in a rich and powerful country like Germany, families with children have to live in a park? A country that often elsewhere demands the respect for human rights and dignity should respect those rights also for us. We appeal to the Senate that the authorities will not let us sleep in the park and that we find altogether a solution for all people who live in the school.
Dankeschön. It's been over 1 year and a half since we occupied the school. We have built a community, and this community belongs to Kreuzberg, and Kreuzberg belongs to we.
Yeah.
You cannot deny our existence and our will to stay where we feel at home. We feel at home in Gerhard Hauptmann Schule.
Germany is a democratic country.
It's supposed to be.
It's supposed to be demokratisch, aber ich verstehe nicht, wie der Mensch so gequält werden bis zu diesem Punkt. Und wir sitzen hier rum mit dicken Autos, mit alles. Hey, wir sind der Trash of Kapitalismus. Das ist, was die Kolonialismus hinterlassen hat. Also wundert ihr euch nicht, weil solange ihr noch weiter die Ressourcen plündert, werden wir nicht aufhören, hierher zu kommen. Wir werden kommen.
Die sollen hier den gesellschaftlichen Reichtum produzieren, aber sie sollen eben nicht an diesem gesellschaftlichen Reichtum dann teilhaben. Und diese gesellschaftlichen Positionen, die sind gesellschaftlich geschaffen worden. Also die sind historisch entstanden durch eben diese verschiedenen Ausbeutungsbedingungen, durch koloniale Verhältnisse und internationale Arbeitsteilung und Imperialismus. Und diese gesellschaftlichen Verhältnisse werden aber nicht auf den Kapitalismus zurückgeführt, sondern auf natürliche Unterschiede, darauf, dass es zum Beispiel verschiedene Rassen gibt.
Diese Rassismus- oder Diskriminierungserfahrungen, das erleben wir direkt an unserem eigenen Leib. Einmal war es unversiegbare Produktionsmigranten gesehen, dann zu der Wende unerwünschte, freiwillig, illegale, bis hin zur nach der Wende dann Zigaretten, Mafia, Zigarettenverkäufer, Versorgungsengpässe, Verursacher in der DDR.
Das führte ja gerade in den 90er Jahren, als eben die Mauer fiel, kam ja dieses Verlangen nach einer deutschen Identität, die seit der Gründung der Nation die große Frage ist, wer oder was ist deutsch, wer oder was hält diese Nation überhaupt zusammen? Ja, das ist eine Frage, die bis heute ja nicht beantwortet ist, weil Rasse kann es ja nicht sein. Ja, also deutsches Blut, wissen wir, ist inexistent.
Und die Wiedervereinigung war für mich irgendwie etwas, wo People of Color, wo schwarze Menschen auf einmal nicht mehr mitgedacht waren, weil sie sozusagen jetzt zu viel waren. Wir mussten jetzt irgendwo hin, aber bitte nicht bei uns und nicht in der Nachbarschaft und nicht in den Schulen.
Und genau nach 30 Jahren Wiedervereinigung, wo so viel zelebriert wurde, wo so viel gefeiert wurde, kam Hanau, wo ein rassistischer Mörder 9 Menschen umgebracht hat, unschuldige Menschen sehr widerlich umgebracht hat und wir alle wieder irgendwie in die Situation hineinversetzt wurden, nicht willkommen zu sein, nicht hierher gehören zu sollen und bedroht zu sein.
Wiedervereinigung viel, viel mehr ist als nur 2 Staaten kommen wieder zusammen, sondern Wiedervereinigung ist viel, viel mehr als das. Wiedervereinigung bedeutet Heilung. Wiedervereinigung sollte bedeuten, dass wir Systeme zerschlagen und dafür sorgen, dass gute, liebevolle, achtsame, intersektionelle Systeme erschaffen werden, das alle mitdenkt, ein System, was alle mitdenkt. Und auf diese Wiedervereinigung warte ich. Ich warte noch auf die Wiedervereinigung.
Sit over there? Okay. You want to sit over there? So this was a sneak preview from the 90-minute long interview series. You call the project Fighters, Kämpferinnen. Can you say a little bit about that? So why this title, but also, why these topics, memory, intergenerational memory for women with a background and experience of flight, migration, but also with their claim to be in this country and having also memories and experience in this country.
Yeah, I think that for us, for example, we don't think this country in the German language, but we are aware we are developing our work in the German context. And when we met each other in the context of the occupations of Oranienplatz in the school, and that became our world. And we needed to know in which country we were, because we knew from where we were, because we came here as adults. We knew the story of this country superficially, as you can only know superficially if you are not here. Like when the wall fell, we remember, and when we were in the school, of course, we had people coming from the east, from the west, and we understood not so fast, but we understood how much this was important for this, even for the left scene around us, the east, the west, and how this story developed. So for us, it was very, very important to understand how migration had been also in the DDR and in the BRD. So we started trying to look for women to learn from them, women who experienced that as migrants, as Gastarbeiterinnen or Vertragsarbeiterinnen, and also German women, BPOC German women. And in 2017, we made a conference exactly on the topic where we brought 22 women together. Peggy was there too. And it was so fantastic for us to learn directly for the women that we thought, well, these are fighters, because they are still there, they're still telling us the story, and we always wanted to continue telling this story. And visually also, because we know in which time we are living in, and not so many people, I think we heard this today, read books and stuff, but films people watch. Then we thought, if we make a good film, we will reach more people. And then today's conference is very limited, the books limited because of the language, but a film, if we do and subtitle and show, we think we can reach more people.
Yeah. Jennifer, how did you get involved? What was your passion in the project?
It's a history. I come from a history of fighting, and like what people think that became politicized when we entered Germany. I have a history of fighting. My grandparents were fighting for the freedom of Kenya, so I come from that history. And it didn't take me long to connect, once I was in the asylum system, the similarities between the asylum system and what was what my grandparents experienced during colonialism. And this was like a trigger to either get drowned and messed up by the system or resist. My resistance was my only way of survival. So I joined Oranienplatz when it was just in the beginning, and the things we were fighting for, interestingly enough, are the similar things that were happening during colonialism. The residence fleeched was there in colonialism. The concentration camps were there in colonialism, and there was the Ausweisung system. Even though my country is Kenya, coming from a British colony, the similarities are so the same. So it came from that point of resisting.
So you're both talking about very important elements of the politics of memory. First to say, we have to learn from each other's experiences and to know these experiences. And secondly, the continuities of experiences, of collective experiences, and by that also remembrance, collective remembrance, continuity of exclusion, and the ways how to enforce and how to implement the exclusion. I'd like you to speak a little bit more about how this element of learning and providing memory and experiences for more women, also in East Germany, and bringing that together. What did you, experience when you went into these exchanges, when you learned their stories, and also when they learned their stories from each other?
I think the most empowering thing is to know how many we are. We are many. And also something we always spoke, Jennifer, we always said, like, we must talk to women coming to events that it's not their personal failure if they didn't get the right to asylum or if they are under threat of deportation. It's a system. It's bigger than what a woman can do herself. You can get the best lawyer, you can have the best reasons. As we heard so many stories that if this world was fair, these people would have gotten asylum straight away. But so this for us was always very important to show how much the system doesn't welcome us, doesn't want us here. So it's not that we should blame ourselves, but we should get together and be a block. We cannot fight the system alone individually.
So empowerment also by politics of memory, to enforce the memory, to hold it up.
Yeah, and also we in Oranienplatz and in the school, especially in the school, we were all the time, someone mentioned that, like we got so many mails, we still get, of people that want to write about us, make films about us, interview us, blah, 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 blah. If we would answer all this, we wouldn't do anything else. And then we thought, okay, let's do ourselves. And then we did 2 self-published books, then we did the conference, then we got this a book from the conference also, and now we are doing this documentation, and we are always investing a lot on translation. We never work in one language only, because we cannot.
So you said in the afternoon how important it was and still is to maintain your own organizational format, to be in a group and to determine the way you define as a group by yourself, and not so much as being, transformed in a certain way that makes you intelligible to the system in this sense. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
For sure. Political education for us is the opposite of what is taught in the school. Political education for us is we sit, analyze the system, and see what is not functioning. And from that aspect, then we organize. It's the complete opposite of, it's our way of living, it's our lives, it touches on our lives. And that's why it's important to maintain our organizations as grassroots groups, because this is where the lives are, this is where the real life is being experienced. And with this, for example, the second time when Napoli occupied the tree, we are able to yeah, see, this is the intersectionality. But then for us, we feel it, we live it. Because the second time when Napoli was there, when she occupied the tree, there was the Afghanistan man who was on the tree. There was at some point, towards the 5th or the 6th day, the homeless people came to sleep under the tree. There was the alcoholics, people who are going through therapy because of alcoholism. So in the end, what Mimi is saying, the remnants of capitalism is what was projected in that. And for us, seeing this reality in the concept of intersectionality is what we want to hold as the gospel truth. That is our doctrine.
Yeah, wonderful.
Can I add just one thing?
Yeah.
No, because this is so true what Jennifer says, and for us, also like Mimi says, the school was our own Babylon, yeah? For us, it was absolutely important to go there because, one, we knew everybody. So we were a community of around 300 people, fighting each other, but getting back to each other, loving each other, and then hating each other, and loving each other every day. But we didn't want to leave that space. That space was our Berlin. And to lose that space was very traumatic for us, even for us as a group, because when we were evicted, all the supporters left us. We were 3 people left. Lika, that appears in the film, Jennifer and I. And we were, okay, what now? And we were for more than a year, just the 3 of us, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's a very important insight and also a collective experience which we very often are not aware of. So there's a combination of support and, of course, also combined with a certain kind of media hype. And once it is over, people are leaving and move on to the next media hype. But that what you're fighting for, what your work is still there. And that's, in a sense, you know, to keep your independence on the one hand, but also being able to maintain also the struggle when everybody is actually is left. I think that's also what this, this experience, this memory will explain. I would like to invite people to get in a discussion with us about what you saw, about also maybe this is about memory, this is about collective memory. The example, the point of departure of this film was by the occupation of the O-Platz in Berlin. You might have your own memory about that. You might know where you have been, or also when the media moved on. So get in a conversation with us.
Maybe just before you think, if you want to ask a question, our drive is also we come from colonized countries. And we started to decolonize Oplatz even the time this term decolonialization started. Because we kept saying, we will not allow this supporter complex to get into us. We will organize in our own way. That was something out of all that situation of the Oranienplatz movement, we were very clear about. And that's why in the end, even when the supporters left, we were left 3 stones standing. And I kept telling Denise later, they will all go. Whoever comes back will come back. If they don't come back, we are fine, we will manage. But we managed. And our consistency has been able to make us to be where we are. So we had this commonality of coming from colonized countries and being aware of that fact.
Yeah. So what you offer us too, you know, as a society is what we very often taking for granted, that the first steps of decolonizing public spaces, processes, knowledge in this country comes from former colonized experiences, collective experiences. And we take that usually for granted by ignoring it and actually thinking we just invented the concept. So, and for you, as you said, the media of putting together this film, the interviews as films, is something to reach more people also who might share this experience with you also and can be part of this collective memory, which is easier than in a book or in other formats. Can you tell us a little bit how you plan on, it's a strange word, it's getting late, I don't know another word for it, but by promoting this project to facilitate workshops or discussions and focusing on the experience also in East Germany?
Yes, we interviewed, we were supposed to interview 10 women, but I think we interviewed almost 20 because one woman after another keeps appearing. Oh, this story is so important. Peg is in the film, by the way. It's an hour and a half. I mean, and then it's difficult to cut, super difficult to cut. So what we decided is we are creating a website where we are going to put the full interviews, so we don't have to cut things we like, and this will be available with subtitles for everybody to access in our website, as we always do. The conference is also there, still available in 5 languages. We keep repeating this. Please go to our website. You can see all the panels. It's amazing in 5 different languages. I'm not going to list the languages. So we are going to have around 20 hours available. And then we want an hour and a half film, and I think we deserve to show it in a cinema, more than once. We don't want to show just once as a premiere. I think we deserve to see ourselves in a dark room cinema, beautifully, with everybody concentrated and listening to all these voices, because as we all know, it's very rare that we sit in a cinema and listen to women's voices telling, and I'm women star, I'm saying, because we have 2 very important refugee trans women in our film that also we didn't put in this cut, but with amazing stories, one from Syria, one from Chile, amazing activists that will be in the final cut. So we want all of these people, like Jennifer said, that comes from colonized countries also to see themselves beautifully there, maybe longer than 1 or 2 weeks, and this will be also then later in our website. But we want this to reach as many people as we can, and we want this experience of listening the history from us women.
So what you describe is actually the appreciation of memory, the appreciation also of the experiences. And what we see is that we have to think about it and to really emphasize, this is how we want to have it, this is how it should be framed, this is how it should be contextualized, this is how it should be housed. Because very often this appreciation is not there, in a sense that in a general public discourse and the narratives, these experiences are not included. So it is actually, if I understand it correctly, also a process of learning and teaching each other own experiences, or which other people, women who have likewise experiences, can tell us about it.
I think all the women who gave a short interview in that short film is saying why they came here. There is a consequences of everything that happened. We are here because of the post-colonial effect. This is clear, but then when we apply for asylum, then if you come here as a economic refugee, you have no place to be accepted. But then we are saying that your evils are coming back to haunt you. So whether you like it or not, we are going to be here. We are going to be here. We are going to colonize Europe again, even if it's through the uterus. We don't care. And then every woman is saying, like the one who was talking about the guest workers, they were here because they were invited with different contracts to produce labor. But then after the labor, then they want to be dispatched. You know, it's disposed. And the way they organized to resist this disposal is what is projected. Every woman in that film is talking of their history. And that is what is important for us.
Yeah. So it's really powerful to see, you know, the strategies of decolonization, because that is what I hear from you, you know. This is how you also decolonize experiences, coming here and also teaching in society what colonialism looks like, and not only what it is remembered and what is in a historical memory, but what it does have what kind of effect it has on contemporary lives, on lives right now. So this is decolonization in a very good way. I'm very thankful for your work. And I want to check in with everybody. It's getting late, I know. But if you want to join us in the discussion here, in the conversation, here is also, we have 2 shares. You can come and join us. Just want to check in. No, of course, you can, exactly. My English is also leaving me very quickly. You can also speak in German. We still have translation. Our interpreters are brave and still sitting there. Let us give them a big round of applause for working so hard all this time. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Mariam translated for us too in the conference.
Marianne Ballet and René Elundi, our interpreters. So you can also speak in German. Sie können natürlich auch sich gern auf Deutsch beteiligen. Well, then maybe let me pose another question. Do you have already a kind of a plan for where you want to go, in which towns or in which areas you want to go?
Oh, yes. Next year is 10 years of Oranienplatz, an international women's space. I will tell you a short story. When I came here, and we used to have very many meetings, and then I could hear white students taking 5 minutes to say they are doing nothing. And I was left wondering, is it me who did not understand, or she's just saying she does nothing? We want to contextualize 10 years of Oranienplatz, the achievements, the challenges, the growth. We want to celebrate the heroes of Oranienplatz next year, the children born out of Oplatz, because we don't want them to be stigmatized as the children from the Oranienplatz movement. We want to celebrate them. This is what we are planning for next year. So this is the mega thing, the film. So we have 2 mega things and the 10-year celebration.
So this is a big announcement. So everybody, because I sensed it already in the room, that, oh, is it already 10 years? Right? So now you know.
Can I just add some? No, because it's 10 years and it's amazing because we realize sometimes when we go speak in public that we see 20-something-year-old people, they don't know exactly what was that, because there is a new generation that was too young to remember that. And if they were not coming from a family that were politicized or were in a school that they didn't have the opportunity to get to know that, they don't know. So it's so easy that such an important movement gets erased from history, that we want in this 10 years anniversary to update the young activists also, so they don't have to start from zero. There was something already that happened before. There is literature about, there are films about, so people can go back in this memory that we helped organizing and politicize themselves, not having to start from zero, like we didn't start from zero, because we are super grateful to what the Caravan and the Voice did. We also start from them. So we wanted this continuity too.
So what you're showing is that you are always embedded in a movement, and the more you know about it, the more you can actually also get some strengths out of it, get some knowledge out of it, and continue also this work. So I think we will see a lot of you next year. You will put together a tour. That's what I think.
There's already a tour.
There is already a tour. Okay. Do you have a couple of highlights for us?
I don't know if people have questions, but if they don't have questions, we can keep talking. We have this one.
There is one. Please come.
Hello, my name is Claudia. I come from La Rep, actually aus Berlin. I cannot answer the question that Peggy Piche made, because I wasn't here or in Berlin or in the Manneberger Platz 10 years ago, but I was deeply touched by the documentary, because I see indeed a lot of parallelism from to colonialism story from the country I came from, and something that two questions that are very present actually in my mind is, if you would have the opportunity to leave a message to other people with similar experiences, what would it be? The message that you would give to them? And my second question is, if you would have the opportunity to give a message to all the people who are in the dominant and powerful position, what would that message be?
It's the same, that we are divided into categories. Capitalism, the remnants of capitalism will always have a struggle. It comes in different phases. For example, in the time of Oranienplatz, what was so prominent was the Residenzpflicht and the voucher system. Now, 9 years after, it comes in Dublin regulation. It comes in something else. They will always invent something that people keep resisting. And the biggest enemy is the white supremacy. The white supremacy has destroyed lives in the name of human rights. That's why we have people dying in the Mediterranean Sea. It's not that migration, they have made migration to look like a crime. But in the real sense, we know why the people are coming. And because a country like Germany is so rich that it is able to hide its racism with its money, we are here to keep saying what are the effects of people like us. What are our stories as people of black and people of color? So the enemy is capitalism, the enemy is white supremacy, but we get entangled in fighting different fights all the time that we don't see the bigger picture.
I agree.
So that was actually a huge call for doing our work. I would say, and actually it's a really great final word for tonight. I will take that as a final closing remarks. Thank you so much. Thank you for letting us sneak preview your work. We are looking forward to the tour next year and to commemorate 10 years of Oranienplatz. Thank you. Ja, vielen Dank für diesen sehr inspirierenden, dynamischen, intensiven Nachmittag, ersten Konferenztag, den wir hatten. Wir wollen jetzt ein bisschen ausklingen, es gibt Getränke, wir werden gute Musik haben. DJ Fort Kelly is ready to roll for us. Und wir werden dann morgen früh pünktlich um 9:30 Uhr mit der Keynote Address weitermachen. Bitte bedenkt.
Spend the evening tomorrow. We are meeting here on time at 9:30. And before we go out, I would firstly like to thank our translator, DGS translator, for the impressive work they have been doing. Thank you very much. They have been translating without interruption, and that led them to deserve a break with us together. So enjoy your evening and see you tomorrow at 9:30. Thank you.